Life in the Frontier Army was unglamorous for everyone, but it was at least slightly more comfortable for the officers, and especially for the commanding officers. We're going to ride along for the daily commute home of Captain George E. Pickett from the approximate site of old Fort Bellingham, now long gone, to his private home in what is now the city of Bellingham. After establishing the post in 1856, Pickett had a cozy two-story home constructed in the nearby town of Whatcom for himself and his Native American wife, whose name is unfortunately lost to us. About 3 miles away from the fort, Pickett's home is a good example of a mid-level officer's standard of living. Officer pay started at $25 per month in those days, while enlisted men made only $7 to $13 depending on his rank. Most soldiers subsisted on canned or salted foods shipped from the East Coast, though some places had a small garden for fresh fruits and vegetables. Company D in Bellingham was one of the lucky units to have homegrown produce, though this is mostly because a garden had already been established by the site's previous occupants before the Army evicted them. Morale was frequently worse even than the pay. Desertions were common everywhere, and Company D was no exception. Fort Bellingham's garrison saw 50 desertions in 3 years. Nonetheless, Joseph Mansfield, the Army's Inspector General, considered them to be in a state of relatively good discipline, certainly better than Fort Townsend, which had 74 desertions in the same period. Captain and Mrs. Pickett, at least, were insulated from the misery of the post. Snug in their handsome wooden home with glass windows and a cozy fire, the Picketts could live a life of relative comfort in growing Whatcom. They had a son, James, in December of 1857, but tragically, Mrs. Pickett died not long after, and George, returning to his native Virginia for some leave, left little James in the care of the Collins family near Olympia. Life on the frontier was hard and frequently unfair for all involved. Pickett enjoyed a cozy private house in town, while his men and lieutenants lived less comfortably on post, with themselves as their only company. Even the lowest-ranking officer made more than twice what an experienced enlisted man was entitled to, and had far less extra duties than him. Native women became nothing more than silent partners to the men who fathered children with them, and their names were lost to history. And then they died in childbirth. And of course, even for the relatively privileged, long morning commutes were still present, and this was without so much as a radio or a podcast to help entertain you.